council is present. I also want to acknowledge that we, the City of Lacey, are on the ancestral land of the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek, including the Nisqually Indian Tribe and the Squax Indian Tribe. With that, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended to remove item 60, the Metropolitan Park District Initiative discussion?
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? That motion unanimously carries. We have approved our amended agenda. And first up on our amended agenda is public comment, and we do have one person signed up for public comment. Former Mayor Mark Brown is here, and he would like to address the council on the MPD. Get over here.
Mr. Mayor, council members, city manager, staff, ladies and gentlemen here at City Hall, good evening. My name is Mark Brown, and I am testifying today, taking my 3 minutes as a private citizen and 50-year resident of the city of Lacey. And I'm here tonight to urge you, if not tonight, because I realize you've changed the agenda, but at some point soon to take favorable action on the recommendations of the Park Improvement Funding Work Group. And I should probably begin by thanking you for appointing me to that working group and giving me the opportunity to get into the weeds on our city's parks and recreation program with some wonderful people contributed a lot of time and effort to taking a look at our park and recreation program and trying to help you and the community address both opportunities and challenges that lie ahead for us. And I also want to say that it was great to get a chance to work with your Parks and Recreation staff, who I found to be extremely capable and helpful to us as we took on the task that you assigned to us. Now, I just want to say very briefly that you already know the scope of the challenge that we as a city face in terms of parks and recreation. Over $6 million just to replace what we already have. In addition to that, there's a $50 million capital improvement list, and just the top 10 projects on that list add up to over $9 million. And so the challenge we face to continue to offer the citizens of this community a premier park and recreation program, a program that in my judgment contributes greatly to the quality of life here in Lacey. It's a big challenge. And I want to say I couldn't come to the workshop in December where our chair presented to you our recommendations, so that's why I'm here tonight. And I just want to say that I hope you'll take favorable action at some point soon. I also want to say that while I couldn't be here, I did read the story in the paper, and I know that Councilman Grinstein, you had a comment that was in the paper about how you wanted more information, you wanted to gather all the information and look at all of the options, and that is absolutely appropriate. But I also want to say to you and your colleagues on the council that that's what we did as a task force at your direction. We really had the time to get into the weeds. And if our goal is to find a sustainable, predictable, long-term, and sufficient revenue source to fund this unfunded need, and as we called it, fill the gap or fund the gap, the Metropolitan Park District is really the only option that does that. And so I do ask you to take favorable action as soon as possible to advance to the voters of this city a robust proposal to approve and create a Metropolitan Park District. And I appreciate very much you giving me a chance to say a few words here tonight. Wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you, Mark. We really appreciate all the work you did on that group, and we will be talking about that here very shortly. Coming up in our retreat, actually. So, is there anyone else wishing to address the council? Seeing none, then let's get right into it. Our next agenda item is our Commission on Equity work plan.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. I am joined up here tonight by 3 of our commissioners on the Commission on Equity. I'm going to start with our Vice Chair, Thelma Jackson, and then right next to me I have Commissioner John Hegwood, and down there I have Commissioner Makita Hart. So thank you for being here tonight. The purpose of tonight is for us to review the work plan. It is a draft as of right now. The Commission on Equity reviewed it back in November as well as December and took action to recommend it to the City Council. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to go over what the tentative tasks are for the Commission on Equity for the next year. Like I mentioned, the Commission on Equity has reviewed this and made a recommendation, and we're really here tonight to seek council input if there's any additional items that the council would like to include within the work plan. And then after reviewing it tonight, take into consideration any comments that are made and then bring it back for council adoption at a future regular meeting through a consent item if necessary. So what's in the plan? I know you all have seen this plan before. We've used it as a base, but what we like to do is we always like to provide a little bit of background on the Commission on Equity itself. So you find that there's a bit of history, talking about the ordinance that established the Commission on Equity and really emphasizing what the commission is tasked with doing. And that is to identify and advance opportunities that will create a more welcoming community, continue critical conversations on race and equity, seek greater participation from underrepresented community members, and identify existing gaps and barriers which could prevent full participation in government and public policy. It provides information on who our current commissioners are, what term they may be in. We just had reappointments of a couple of second terms, and then also provides information on staff liaisons and points of contact and what the meeting schedule is. And so for anybody who may be watching, the Commission on Equity meets on the fourth Monday of the month at 5:30 p.m. here at the council chambers, and you can also watch all of the meetings remotely. In addition to providing that background and overview, it also provides a overview of some of the activities that the Commission on Equity has worked on for a period of years. Like mentioned earlier, there was an ordinance that adopted and established the Commission on Equity, and that dates back to 2021. And so everything that the commission has worked on is not included within this work plan, but it is a rolling kind of 2-3 year period. And so you can see here I'm showing, and it's very small, and I don't expect anybody to read that up here, but it's really highlighting what happened in 2024. And so I do want to highlight a couple of big projects that the commission has been working on. And I'll start with the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Strategic Plan. That was one of the largest lifts that the Commission on Equity has done today. It was 3 years of work in progress. It culminated in over 20+ public meetings, as well as community engagement. And I know this commission has reviewed it and adopted it last year, and we're now in the process of starting implementing the tasks that are identified within that plan. In addition to working on that plan, the commission also started the implementation of the advisory board stipend program and demographic survey. So this was adopted back in 2023, but it was the first year we did it. And then the first year we were able to look at some of the data and start to think about just the advisory board and recruitment and processes. The group also met with business groups from around Thurston County. This was a first for the Commission on Equity, meeting with Thurston County EDC, the Chamber of Commerce, receiving an economic update from the City Council, and then also diving into middle housing, and affordable housing plans that the city is working on. They also started to work on the public comment policy. This was something that was not planned at the beginning of 2024, but due to the unfortunate circumstances of being Zoom bombed, this really took a lot of attention from the Commission on Equity in early 2024, and they worked through that process to bring a policy recommendation to the City Council. They also reviewed a utility wrap project and selected art for the first recommendation for art for the first phase of that project. And they held a couple of community forums, including the All Abilities Community Forum last April. The commission has also started working on looking at equity maps. And I am happy to say that that project is moving forward. We are now working with a contractor on creating an equity map for it to be a tool for internal and external use. And so hopefully we'll have more information and updates on that project here soon. The commission has also been working with partner organizations. I will highlight the Fred U. Harris Lodge because it has just been such an incredible partnership between the two entities, the city and that group, with the 43rd Juneteenth celebration, and we're looking forward to helping continue to be partners moving forward for next year's celebration. In addition, the commission has also started reviewing the comprehensive plan. So we have been working with CED. They have received presentations on communications and the community engagement plan. Also working to review human services, first the work group and then the grant program and then the commission. So going through all of the review process for that. Meeting with all of our local university and colleges to talk about their equity initiatives and to find ways that there could be partnerships. And then also working on park improvement funding work group. Commissioner Hegwood was the Commission on Equity's representation to that work group. In addition, the Commission on Equity has also received information from other groups from around not just Thurston County, but across the state, including the Black Home Initiative, and are starting to work on a continuation of the community engagement and outreach, not only through community forums, but starting to think about a regional diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging summit with our partners. So that's just a brief highlight. That's a lot of things that the commission has been working on, and that is just 2024. What you also find within the work plan is a kind of report card on the things we said we were going to do. We hold accountability as one of our top priorities. And so it does talk about things that the commission has completed, things that are continuing to be in progress, and then other things that are on hold. So just giving you an update on where we're at with the status of those things. So some of the things that are either in progress or on hold are continuations in the plan for 2025. And it also builds off of some of the things that were identified within the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging strategic plan. So we're really focusing, like I said, on that implementation. So what do we have for in progress and not started items? So for continued items, the commission in the draft right now is going to continue to research and take a look at advisory board recruitment process. So previously we talked about the stipend being set up and now taking a holistic view from, considering how we recruit to the application process, the materials that we review, all the way through to see if there are any barriers that might prohibit any interested parties from participating in local government. We're going to continue to look at equity maps, like I mentioned, and in conjunction, any additional equity tools that may be helpful for making programmatic or policy decisions. Continuing to talk about community liaisons programs. So this is a program that we're hoping to move forward to the finish line in 2025, where we can get community members to be ambassadors. So we have a better two-way dialogue with communities out in Lacey. We've reviewed already a community survey, and we're going to be moving forward with that, continuing to be a part of the comprehensive planning involvement. Just at the last meeting we had last night, we had Ryan come back, and Ryan talked about some of the updates they found from their public engagement, and the Commission on Equity provided some additional feedback. And like I mentioned, the summit planning and continuing to engage the community through forums and other engagement events. You can see on this list, I have starred all of the items that are found as strategies or benchmarks within the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging plan. So what are some new items? So new items for 2025 that are in the plan are to update the report. So part of our strategic plan was that every year we were going to do a kind of a final report on some of the equity efforts that we did in 2024 or the previous year. And so we are going to be wrapping that up. Moving forward with a language access plan, the commission will be reviewing that. The Commission on Equity just reviewed the draft employee survey. Talking about cross-department equity teams and contracts and other items as they come up. And so I just wanted to highlight here, I've highlighted the language access plan for review just to drive home the point of we're really committed to implementing the diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging strategic plan. And so you can see here under the goal area of community access and engagement, item A, one of the benchmarks was number 1, develop and implement a language access plan. So we are putting that into action here with the draft work plan and continuing to move forward. So this really is the end of the presentation. I just wanted to provide a background and walk over, what is in the draft 2025 plan, but we're really interested in hearing if there are other items that should be included as part of the work plan, and if there are any updates that the council would like to see. And so with that, I will stop the share of the presentation and open it up for dialogue.
Sure. Of course, the reason why we have the Commission on Equity is really to take input from the Commission on Equity on what we're missing. And so I've had several conversations with some members of the Commission on Equity, and I'm going to put Dr. Jackson on the spot. What do you think is missing in our in this plan or in our work plan that we should be focusing on, not only in 2025, but going forward?
Well, we've been talking, excuse me, talking a lot on the commission about what's missing, and part of our work, after we spent the first couple of years talking about equity, we turned our attention to the topic of inequity. Where are the inequities in our community around which we try to frame the recommendations we were making by way of goals, by way of benchmarks that were being put in place? And we continue to have that conversation, because what's an inequity to one person isn't an equity to others. And so we're trying to look at what's going on with the comprehensive planning that's going on. And there's so many aspects to that, and we had a very good dialogue on that last night. But it's hard to quantify attitude. There's a big missing piece about attitude. How do you measure commitment and that kind of thing? And with what's going on in the country now, and when our 3-year plan was finished and put into place, many of those dynamics weren't issues we had to concern ourselves about. So we've talked about the fact that at this point, we here in Lacey have set some directions for ourselves. We can't do anything about what's happening at the national level, but to turn our attention to locally in our own community. And the commitment that you've shown as a council gives us hope that the teamwork it's going to take to make some things happen are in place. Your proclamation calling out hatred and meanness and racism was a huge public statement on your part, and that added some strength to this 3-year strategic plan that we've sent to you for approval and recommendation. And last night at our meeting, we were talking about how Lacey has stepped forward as a leader in Thurston County, looking at where Olympia is, where Tumwater is, where the county is, and we're very proud that we're 3 years ahead of them.
Yep.
But we're better prepared for what's confronting us now with all the hatred and the meanness than if we were starting from scratch, trying to test the water to see where there's will, where there's commitment. And so we continue to look for where things are missing, and we call them out as they come to our attention and as we share. We tried to be as thorough as we could and point out as many of those things, and a lot of the things we've pointed out, they've been incorporated in other agency plans, and so we're pleased about that. But we continue to look, because with what's going on in our nation, we're just beginning to peel back the scab and a lot of hidden things. And so to what degree, will and commitment exists, we'll find out. We'll find out, but it's a difficult thing to approach. It's a difficult thing to have a goal statement. It's a difficult thing to have a benchmark or a performance indicator. But we're at that level.
Okay.
So we've had the surface conversation now, and now we are talking about what will our work look like for the next 2 or 3 years as we attempt to provide oversight and accountability. So is it happening? And Shannon just shared with you our color-coded, completed, in progress, not underway. So we're monitoring that kind of thing. And we've received enough information over the last 3 years to have some sense of what's the question that we need to ask as city employees come back before us. So I can't say specifically anything that's missing. We've worked hard to try to make sure, as far as we can tell, and as far as our information tells us, that it's a rather comprehensive plan that once it becomes adopted and is a part of the city's strategic plan, with all of those pieces moving in the same direction together, we're very optimistic with a lot of hope that, we continue to move forward as a city.
Well, I really think the ambassador program is going to be really important because the work that we've done here is very admirable, and I'm very proud of the time and effort and the support of this council when it comes to this issue that's very near and dear to my heart for everyone who knows. But one of the things that we've realized is that not everyone is participating in our local government, and not everyone is even understanding what our goals are. They hear equity or DEI, and they say, what is the city becoming woke and all these other things. And there's a lot of misinformation that's out there. And the way you combat misinformation is with hard conversations and truth and data. And we have to have ambassadors out in our community having these conversations because we're just not big and there's not enough of us to do it on our own. We need the support of the community to do that, and that is why I'm really proud and happy to see that there's an ambassador program, but I think that is really the next step that I would like to see focus on, because there has to be having other people besides the Commission on Equity and our council having these conversations. It has to happen out in our community. We have to get that feedback where there's misinformation. We have to address that and try to make sure everyone is successful and has this opportunity to be successful here in the most diverse city in Thurston County, which is what I believe makes us the strongest city in Thurston County. Anything else from the other commissioners on things that you'd like to see? Anything that we missed? What about from the council?
I promised I would bring this forward for Councilmember Vasquez, who couldn't be here tonight, although I wholeheartedly support the idea myself. Robin has put forward the concept of Lacey sponsoring a Pride event. I personally think it's a little late to try to pull one off in 2025, but I wanted to see if there was interest among commissioners here in maybe taking on one for 2026. That is an important part of our community, and we fly the flags, and that's nice, but this would be one more step we could take. And you look like you want to say something.
Yes, Councilmember Cox, those conversations have actually already been happening in our commission. We attended a community event 2 weeks ago and had some great conversations with Capital City Pride as well on possible avenues for coordination on something, or even just simply joining them instead of trying to go all in and come up with something on our own. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's already an event happening that's effectively countywide annually that the city could potentially jump in on. So those opportunities exist for us. And that's something that I'm also very passionate about as one of the only 2 queer commissioners on our Commission on Equity. But yes, we are avidly pursuing this, and we hope to have some options to be able to present to the council for moving next steps.
I could add to your question about what's missing. One of the things we've talked about off and on as an equity commission is the whole issue of the quality of education in our schools. And while we clearly understand that school board members are a separate elected body from this city council, and we're advisory to this city council, we butt up against comments and complaints from students, parents, quite often about the inequities in our schools. And so one of the things I have hoped for is that as we get into 2025 and beyond, that we can have some significant conversations with the elected school leaders and the administrative level of the school district. We have a student representative on this entity, and she made a very forceful comment last night at our meeting about the school district presents things as one way, but as a student, she's here to tell us it's not that way. So the line I often use is, we can't have an equitable community if we don't have equitable schools. So somehow we need to find a connection where certain courageous kind of conversations about what is or is not going on in the schools that cause people not want to raise kids here, not want to move here. And so it's all connected.
Yes.
So we got to find out a way to talk across lines of demarcation that keeps certain subject matter off of our agendas.
Well, I appreciate that. The deputy mayor and myself, along with our city manager, understands that this is a issue facing Lacey, and those students are part of our community. And the one thing that we can do is act as a convener to have these conversations. And we've met with some school board president leadership and said, hey, this is an issue that we need to continue to have conversations about, because what you're hearing is different than what I'm hearing, and so we need to sort of get to the bottom of it, and no one should be afraid of a conversation. And so we could continue to work on that, and I think what at the very least needs to happen is the Commission on Equity needs to meet with the school board to sort of start these conversations and have an official meeting, and start talking about where are the ways that we can coordinate to make sure that we're on the same page, because we hear it as well. And it's tough because everyone wants to sort of, well, you know, these are your boundary lines and don't stay within your boundary lines. But I think it is the cooperation between jurisdictions where the real work happens and where you can make some significant change. But if you stay siloed, it's really hard to do that. So I know we're in front of the majority of our community. We got started on this issue before everyone else did, and so everyone else is sort of playing catch up. And so I understand that as well. But where we can help other jurisdictions, where we can help our school board, where we can have conversations with our community who still doesn't understand what we're trying to do, and look at what we're trying to do as something that's negative, means we have a lot more conversations that we need to have if anyone thinks that what we're trying to do is negative in our community, because that is not the case at all. So let's continue to work on that.
I just want to piggyback on that, and then also what you, Dr. Jackson, were talking about, the local aspect of it. A, it's really hard to have these conversations. B, in a governmental setting, it's even harder. So without the advisory board doing what you're doing, I don't know if we could actually have these conversations. So what you're doing is extraordinarily important. And as far as the local aspect, I said the most important thing anybody can do with their life is help their neighbor and help their family. Not everyone's going to be in a position to affect thousands upon thousands of people. And I would love to see it. I understand the amount of time and effort put into the plan that you guys put together, and it's amazing, and it's going to help our city be better. And I would love to see a lot more moving forward as they come, how, as a community outside of the city, the areas that we're lacking that we need to improve on. I think so much work and time has been put into what the city can do better, but I want to see also the gaps in our local community of what the community can do, you know, whether it be the Pride Festival, I've pushed for a Latino festival, just anything that our community can do to be better, I think, is an area where you guys are going to be able to have conversations that are very time-consuming for a city to do and nearly impossible. So I want to thank you and keep advocating for the work that you guys are putting in, because you're all volunteers, you know, without you. You're doing this because you want to. No one's, you know, it's not in a job description or being forced. So I want to thank the entire board for putting in that work, and I can't wait to see what can come out of it.
And we've said this before, things come up all the time within community, and we have no idea what's going to happen next week. We have no idea what's going to happen a week from now, a month from now, next year, of something that can happen in our community. But the fact that we have an advisory board, we need to make sure our lines of communication stay open. I appreciate our joint meetings. In many ways, I don't feel like it's enough to stay on top of current events and emerging issues. But we're all busy, we all have busy schedules, and I understand that. I just want to make sure that as issues emerge, there is a pipeline to get them addressed, and we're not waiting until a year from now to put it into a work plan to address it when we might have missed the moment. And so that's asking a lot, I understand that. But if we miss that piece, then we're playing catch-up. And we've already been playing catch-up for 50-plus years, as a city. So I want to be proactive as much as possible instead of reactive. But
And, just real quick, so you guys have the opportunity to bridge the gap between two entities. And those two entities could, change. It could be the city and the school district. It could be, the county and whoever. I'm glad you brought up the school thing because it weighs heavy on me. If some little kid is afraid to go to school because somebody found out that he's queer, right? And now he has to, try to avoid getting, hurt at school, or somebody's going to school and they're dealing with, racism, right? Because it's there, right? And they're no longer wanting to attend, or would rather just not, right? And we get to see those reports, and they're not as granulated as I would like them to be. They're not broken down the way they really could be, so that we can make better decisions based on them. And I think that's somewhere you guys might be able to bridge a gap. And so it weighs heavy because, having gone through it myself, right? And so the mayor and I and the city manager have literally gone and had meetings, right, after we've gotten a piece of information, or some group decided that, hey, we want to come, can you sit down with us for a minute? We can tell you what's happening, right? And so getting to listen to multiple sides of a story, it compels us to say, hey, can we sit and talk with you guys? Because what we're hearing is painful for us to listen to. Mm-hmm. And we've had to do that a few times, not just at the school level, but in different areas. But one of the things I love about the Commission on Equity, in addition to all this work that you guys have done, oh my God, right, is that there is a possibility that you guys can bring all of this together.
that's the hope.
To make kids not want to, who knows, the worst could happen, right? And has.
I'm glad you brought that up. So 2 meetings ago, we had some representatives from one of the local middle schools come out and ask us to speak for their Martin Luther King Jr. Day presentation. And 3 of us decided to go. We had Chair Brown, myself, and Commissioner Brown, myself, and Chair Sauer. And that was a really great experience. When we walked into the school, they were ready. Like, literally their hallways had all of the Martin Luther King poster boards, escorting us to their gymnasium. And then we got into the gymnasium. They had, their choir had music, entertainment towards the end. They had a slideshow. And then when we got together to kind of pre-plan what we were going to say, we ended up just basically talking about, where we came from. Commissioner Brown talked about the Jim Crow era because that's kind of what he lived through. And then I was able to talk about being from the South, living in the North, and having to go back and visit the South, being a biracial family as well. And then we had the other perspective of somebody who's an immigrant having to immigrate over. And so we were able to kind of let them know, where our life came from, and also merge it into why we're doing what we're doing here on the commission. And they were very, very attentive. We even got feedback for some of the children. So I know that this is something that they crave. We also, that same day, got the opportunity to go to the local high school and do the same. And they were ready, They were ready to, with their multicultural clubs. Both of them had multicultural clubs. And I think it's great to start them at middle school and have them thinking about transitioning from not just middle school to high school, but then when they transfer out from high school, whether they go to college, trade school, vocational school, or straight to work, these are things that they're going to have to deal with in their community. So it was a great, activity or honor to be able to go there and kind of give them that perspective and have them think about what they can do at their level.
Thank you. Anything else from the council?
Is it true that the fire alarms kept getting pulled during the Martin Luther King celebrations, not just here, but in other places, as if some coordinated disruptive act?
At the school?
Yeah.
No, not at the schools that we attended.
Okay.
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
council members, I do just want to take a moment to highlight that some of the conversation that we had, and I think this was really good input, is found in the work plan for 2025, specifically talking about holding meetings with our school and local educators, and so that's found here in quarter 2 in the plan. And then also, like Commissioner Hegwood mentioned, starting to consider and research celebration options for LGBTQIA+ recognitions are both found in here, in addition to the ambassador program. So it's incorporated in here, and it sounds like maybe there's nothing else that the commission at this point wants to consider as additional adds to the work plan. Is that correct?
I'm sure more will come up.
I'm sure it will.
Things have a way of coming up whether you plan for them or not.
I did have one quick question. So we have an email for the commission on the city website, right?
That is correct.
Do people write in, and if so, what are they saying when they're contacting us, and what kind of questions do they have? What kind of things are they concerned about?
Sure. So I will say the traffic on the email is not incredibly high. We do receive a lot of invitations for community events. We also receive just public comment through there as well. And, public comment can range from a variety of, questions or concerns to essentially kind of public comment bombing.
Okay.
Well, again, that's why I brought up, I think one of the most important things we can do is look at our ambassador program. I think we need to be making sure that people who are comfortable being a representative from the city, but also hearing from the communities that we may not be hearing from, because there is either a language barrier, there's a trust barrier, the list can go on and on. If that's what we need to overcome, right? It's that communication barrier. I don't necessarily, sometimes it takes something tragic or something way out of the, or for someone to have the courage to speak up. And the courage to speak up when you have, are put down every time you do speak up is asking a lot from it's asking our community to have a lot of faith when there hasn't been a lot of justification for faith in the past. And so we have to find a way to make that easier for conversations and real life situations that are happening within our community actually percolate up so we can do it. Because if we don't hear it, we can't address it. And we know if through the normal course of way we've done business at the local government level hasn't necessarily included those voices. Mm-hmm. And especially right now, within the immigrant community, I had a conversation with someone recently who is afraid to do anything right now. Afraid they don't want to put their name on anything. They don't want to, definitely wouldn't want to come forward and volunteer to be a voice for their community. And that is heartbreaking to feel like, it's like when you're your tabs, you realize your tabs have expired on your vehicle, and you're like, oh my goodness, my tabs expired on my vehicle, and you're driving around. Every time you're driving around, you're like, oh my goodness, my tabs expired on my vehicle. I can't imagine what that feels like all the time, to feel like at any moment you're gonna get pulled over and something, something's gonna happen. And that is, we talk about belonging in our community. We need to be able to have these conversations where we make sure people feel like they belong. And that is what's, at the end of the day, one of the reasons why I was so passionate about the work that needs to be done. Because I know that work hasn't been done. Historically, hasn't been done, so.
Since we're in the asking portion of things, and there are already some talks about different festivals, I would be remiss if I didn't say I would like to see some exploratory conversations on Hispanic Festival.
And so commissioners, is that something, or council members, is that something to add maybe to Q3 of consider research on celebrations, just broader?
Yeah. I've also brought up, I think it's really important when people share a meal. And this goes way back when this was an ad hoc committee. One of the reasons why I was really hoping to get people in the community together is so we could have conversations over food. Because when you share a meal with someone, everything sort of changes. You start seeing people as people, and that's really important. And so my hope from 10 years ago was that we would have something along the lines of a diversity cooks. I know I've talked about this over the years, where we can have a situation where people are sharing the different foods that and that can lead to conversations. And I've been wanting to see something like that happen. I don't know how to make that happen. I was hoping that at some point that would be addressed within the commission. But I know you have a lot on your plate, and this is sort of just one of the things I've been hoping to see. But I do think it's important that the community can share a meal and share a conversation. It's just, you have a different conversation when you're in that circumstance.
There's one thing that I would like to potentially see, and so the governor has put together an executive order in preparation for these potential mass deportations that are supposed to be happening, which is probably terrifying to some families in this community, especially if there are kids involved. Is it possible that the commission can loop in with that task force and maybe bring some protocol back, or find out what they're doing, what direction they're going? How can we, I guess, protect the people in our community in the way that, the state is planning and hoping? So I don't know how better to say that, but the task force is going to have their first meeting on February 14th. But I would like us to loop in with that, with the governor's office.
And we do need to discuss about looking into a festival, as the Councilmember Dunning just, is there some consensus? Like, is that something we'd like put some resources to looking at?
I have mixed feelings about it. I'm all about embracing Hispanic, Latino culture, but how do you start celebrating one without celebrating another, and without perhaps diluting our cultural fest that we have already in Lacey? So maybe that's a good conversation for the Commission on Equity to have, is what makes sense, because they already have a big load, but yeah.
Well, and I do think this, the fact that we took, and it's this weekend, right, is our cultural,
Saturday.
it's a Saturday, the cultural celebration. And we took that, the city took that over because it was going away. And the city stepped up. And so we've been leading on this issue for a long time. But my thought is maybe that could be a 2-day celebration, and we could expand it to have a little more highlights of different, instead of just one day, and you try to throw everything to one day, we could maybe break that up, and it's just worth conversations, and I think let's go through this weekend, maybe, I know you're gonna be present, and you can maybe ask the community what is missing, what would they like to see, and bring that back to us, and we can talk about what we need to add going forward.
That would be great for like a fall festival type of thing I could see
Yeah.
happening.
I think one other thing that's important as we move forward, taking the next steps, now that commitment has been publicly articulated, is that it becomes an activity for all to be involved in. Parks and Recreation, culture's in that name, so that there's not just one group. This Equity Commission that's being looked at to carry that much weight. Everybody's got to take a piece of this task. As you said, we're a small group of volunteers, and there's a limitation of what we can do. But if everybody's on board, everybody's sharing the will and commitment, then community potluck of ethnic dishes and all, tied into the ethnic fest kind of thing. And programming on everybody's part has to begin to incorporate issues of equity without it always being just the Equity Commission.
Yeah.
When we get to that point, then we can really move forward as a city.
Yes, ma'am.
So council members, I've heard, I've got under engagement, maybe to modify that to research and consider community events, including LGBTQIA+ and Latino and other community events. We can expand that. And again, the item is to research and consider, and so we can have a discussion across the Commission on Equity and bring back any recommendations at a later date.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay. Next up on our agenda is the Historic Commission Work Plan. I have to admit, you guys are also near and dear to my heart. I love our Lacey Historic Commission.
Love to do love. Rick said he'd be right back.
Okay, great.
You don't need to wait if you don't want to.
Perfect, let's go.
Just seeing if there's anybody else on the line. Okay. Would you like us to get started, Mayor?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Well, good evening. I'm Jen Burbage, Director of Parks, Culture, Recreation, and wanted to thank the council and the Historical Commission for this evening, for this opportunity to celebrate the past year's accomplishments and review the 2025 work plan. And just checking if there's anyone virtually. It looks like we do not have anyone. So we'll make introductions first. So, you wanna-
Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Erin Quinn Balcho, Museum Curator for the city.
And Jim Keough, I'm Chair for the Commission.
Everyone got from the Vice Chair of the Commission.
Make sure you turn your,
On the Commission, I'm in all, I'm on, almost a year now.
yeah, just make sure you have your microphones on. You have to hit that so that it shows green.
There you go. Perfect. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
One more.
Yeah. Yeah, oh.
Oh, one more.
There you go.
All right, great. So Chair Keough and Museum Curator Erin Quinn Balcho will be presenting this evening, but before they begin, I just really want to thank them for all of their hard work this past year. The commission does such a great job and they're so dedicated. And our rock star staff, Erin Quinn Balcho, and our museum coordinator as well, who isn't here tonight, but Felicia. They just do such a wonderful job and work so hard every day. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chair Keough.
Good evening, Mayor Ryder, Deputy Mayor Miller, and council members. I'm going to be highlighting some of the Commission's 2024 accomplishments, and you probably have this in your packet. Of significance, we wrapped up our joint project this year with the Thurston County Historic Commission to research, write, design, and build the interpretive kiosk at the rack. That's going to be, the panels were installed last week. They are planning for a dedication program on Saturday, March 8th at 10 o'clock. Currently is the time that's set for that. There's several different panels that were done there, and we did some of those jointly. I know Aaron worked a lot on those. I've worked on those. We've had other commission members work on those. One that is featured here, of course, is the Evergreen Ballroom. We just had a talk about that last month. Another one, good for the location, is about the Regional Athletic Complex. And we did, that particular one was in the context of Lacey's historic efforts in supporting recreation that go all the way back to the fields at Lacey Elementary. There's one on the city of Lacey, its history and development, the Nisqually tribe, the Nisqually Delta itself, JBLM and its importance to the community, St. Martin's University, and then there's a map of historic points around the county. We were delighted to award this year's Ken Balsey Historian of the Year Award to Paul Webb for his work in researching and writing a book on the early history of the Lacey Fire Department. Paul was nominated by the Lacey Historical Society, and John Halverson, I know, was part of that process. We had a successful year of museum programs, including a continuation of our History Talk series. We have also had summer and fall craft projects to encourage more visitation from families. Those have continued to be popular. Total visitation this year was about 545 people, a little less than usual, but that's because we were closed for most of November and all of December for the museum move. This year, we also completed the first phase of our Stories of South Sound Oral History Project. We were honored to hear many stories that represent the experiences of historically underrepresented cultures and groups throughout Lacey and the South Sound. As you may recall, we hired a historic preservation consultant to complete the Jacob Smith Smith House Register nomination and to complete property research for the McKinney Building to determine its appropriateness for addition to the local register. A wetland delineation study has also been completed around the McKinney House so that we can have a full understanding of the property and the site before moving forward. The item that we're right in the midst of right now is the move to new lease space of the museum, for the museum on 6th Avenue. The staff is very excited about that. Work is underway to make the new space a good venue for sharing Lacey's history and for then setting up the museum to be more of a research and coordination center. These are the grants that we had funding or made progress on in 2024. We wrapped up the $15,000 Diversity and Local History Grant, which funded an intern to do work on the Stories of South Sound project that we talked about earlier. We also received $40,000 from the lodging tax funding for operating funds. And we were surprised to receive, be the recipient of an unexpected bequest. The Lacey Women's Club is selling the Gallagher House, and
Nope, this was from a private individual.
oh, this is private. Okay, I'm sorry, I got those two confused. From the bequest, we got a sum of $11,000, and in the future, when the property is sold, we'll receive a portion of the sale value. I will now pass the presentation over to Aaron for the 2025 work plan.
Yeah, so I'm sure you got the work plan in your packets as well. And as Jim touched on, the rack kiosk has been installed. There's a picture here that shows the map side, which turned out really cool, I think. And you all will be receiving individual invitations to the dedication, which will be coming probably in the next week or so. So we hope to see you there. Of course, our main focus right now, and perhaps our biggest project, will be to get the new museum space open to the public. Today, we received our mobile museum walls, which we're going to put together. It's going to look like a professional gallery. We're very excited. The picture that was on the slide before with my staff, like cheering, they're doing all these great social media presentations. They're going to have things throughout the move to show how the progress is going, and their enthusiasm is boundless. So I encourage you to check those out.
When do you anticipate being open to the public?
Well, we've had some delays, unfortunately, but I'm hoping March. That's kind of what I'm hoping in my head. We're real close to being able to start really going forth and moving, so.
And it's probably worth noting that they're going to be having a meeting of the museum volunteers in about a week.
Yes, that's true. And so the exhibit that we're going to open with is called Bits and Bobs. Our aviation exhibit is going to be slightly delayed because we don't have the time to focus on it while we're moving. So the Bits and Bobs is going to be like a fun thing to showcase things in our collection that are really interesting with some cool history that maybe wouldn't get to be seen otherwise, a little something for everybody. And then we're hoping that the aviation exhibit will be able to open in the fall in our new space. And we're partnering with the Lacey Makerspace on that project to help us with the props and things, so should be really fun. And then a project that we're planning to work on this year is to get our historic properties map onto the website I'm hoping with the help of Vice Chair Wyckoff, who really loves the maps. And so I put up on the slide an example of what's on our website now for municipal parks. So it'll be similar to that, where you'll be able to click on, the specific property and see a picture of it, past and present, and get a little bit of history on it. And then, of course, we hope to get some nominations for the Historian of the Year Award and celebrate Lacey History Month with that in May. And I think that was everything that I had. Oh, yeah. Once again, we are super grateful for all the time, effort, and the guidance that we get from the Historical Commission. They really care about the museum and the work that we do, and we couldn't do it without their support. And so tonight, we're asking to add the Historical Commission's 2024 accomplishments and 2025 work plan to a City Council consent agenda for approval. And we are happy to answer any questions you might have.
I will ask you the same questions that I asked the Commission on Equity. Is there anything that you feel like we're missing on the plan that we need to add to the plan that we haven't already thought of? I'll open it up to anyone. Can't think of anything? Okay. Well, then, I love Lacey history, so I have lots of things that I would love to, highlight. I mean, I think the one that I keep coming back to, and this I think Council's very aware of, is, we sort of have stalled on our Lacey Museum and Cultural Center. I think one of the reasons why it's tough to do more cultural celebrations in this community and have a place for people to convene and have conversations and do things is because we really just don't have a space. Well, but we actually have been planning for a space, and we have plans, we have all ready to go, we're just been sort of waiting on funding, but it's sort of the squeaky, wheel gets the grease. We've heard a lot of updates and plans, and we looked at it and, years ago, but it's not something that's in the forefront of the minds of our community. And one way to realize that is because of the work the Parks Department did on asking, what you'd like to see as a priority. And the Museum and Cultural Center was down lower on the list, and I think the only reason why it's down lower on the list is because people have no idea what we're talking about. And so I would like to see at least find ways where we can sort of promote that so we can find more opportunities to build some excitement. And who knows, maybe there is someone out there that would make a big contribution, and that would help us get on our way. I know that the city has, contracted with the Lacey Foundation, Lacey Community Foundation, and they're going to be doing some work on fundraising. But even if we did some of the fundraising on the private side that we've talked about, the city's not necessarily even ready to go with funding on their side. So, I mean, I think this is something that we need to sort of revive and figure out how do we actually get there? Because we sort of talked about it and there was a lot of excitement and we just thought somehow it was just going to organically happen magically, which nothing ever happens that way. It happens by having like a focus on it with clear benefits of why we're interested in doing this in the first place. And I think there's many reasons why this would be a project that would be very popular within our community, but the community has to understand what they're getting from it as well. So there's that.
If I may speak to that really
Please.
quickly, just to let you know, we have hired the Lacey Community Foundation to do a 5-year fundraising plan and communications plan. So we should be getting those deliverables here
Yeah.
soon. And so city manager has asked me within a few months, as soon as we get those deliverables, to go ahead and bring that to city council. So we will be discussing that project very soon here, so.
That's
just
great.
kind of a quick update.
The other thing,
And to bring
go ahead.
that strategy, but then also to have the conversation with the council, how do we implement that strategy? And it's going to be a combination of city as well as community and foundation work, but it's that partnership going forward.
I know we had that conversation years ago, we just haven't had the conversation in a long time, and it will never happen unless we keep that conversation going. It's funny, because as we were going through the presentation, I immediately saw Ken Balsley, and my stomach kind of dropped, and I just can imagine if he was sitting here right now, how he'd be yelling at us for why we haven't built the museum yet or are planning to build it, and I would
I
say,
can do that.
yeah, absolutely, I know, John, you can fill right in, go ahead and yell away, I get it. And so I think that's important. The other thing that we haven't done in quite a while is that we do have a list of historic properties that are within Lacey, and there's getting on the historic register is one thing, and that's quite the process, and you're actually, the Lacey Historic Commission is a certified to be able to do that, which is a unique ability of one of our advisory boards. You actually can serve in that capacity too, and you have to have the expertise, and you all know about this. I'm not sure if the council knows about this, but to be able to determine if a property should go on the historic register. But there's also a lot of properties that don't necessarily have to go on the register, but could be still recognized as part of Lacey history. And if we don't sort of have a highlight on that, we're going to start losing some of that, and so I've always been trying to think of, it's like, I loved when we used to do the walk around Lacey.
The walking tours?
The walking tour. It was very popular, and, the last one we did, of course, before COVID, we had like 60, we had a ton of people walking around.
Yeah,
There's something that
it
people.
was very popular.
Yeah,
If I can speak to that a little bit.
Please.
One of the things Felicia's been thinking about, and to your other point as well, I think our new space is really going to help
Yes.
with a lot of the momentum, because people are going to see us, we're going to be a lot more visible. And, people just walking by or driving by are going to see that we're having activities or programs or whatever, and we can start to show some of the things that we can actually do in this space. So I wanted to bring that up. And Felicia is got in her mind to do a walking tour around the South Sound Center area where the movie theater was and all that stuff. So we have not forgotten at all about walking tours. We've just been pulled in a bunch of different directions is all. You may not hear from Ken, but I hear from Jan. So his spirit lives on through her. And I know she's working behind the scenes to try to keep the momentum up. And regarding historic properties, I didn't mention it, but the next step after getting the register properties onto the website is to get the inventory properties also on the website on a map, so that people can see that there are lots of historic potential, because you're totally right, our city is now, over 50 years old, going on 60, and our historic properties are turning that year too. And so as they become more than 50 years old, they can potentially be eligible. And like you said, there's a lot of really interesting stories, even in the historic neighborhood, but all over the place. That the house may not be eligible for the register, but they've got really great history with them. So, I hear you.
I think that's, something with, especially with a historic society, there's I think a joint opportunity to work with the society and the commission on just making sure that we have it on a map, that we have some information, and, gives us some opportunity to work with a historic society on making sure we don't forget our history, because we have grown so much, and we've already seen where, as we're growing, and property is being redeveloped, like, we don't want to make sure, we're losing the historic, those historic buildings and the historic people that created those areas. There's a lot of really cool information out there that you just look a little bit into, like a lot of the names of our streets in the city of Lacey. A lot of people don't know the stories of the name of our streets, and there's really amazing stories behind those names, right? Their name is on a street. There's a reason why, and there's probably a really good story behind it too. Mayor?
Yeah, I'd like to recognize that on the Lacey Historical Society, we have a real go-getter who's loving to write stories about the people and the places in Lacey, Kendra Hensley. And for those of you who get a chance to look on Facebook at the Lacey Historical Society page, every Monday she is posting research and stories of the 60 people that were memorialized at the Russell House, the historic memory gardens and so forth. And so she has picked one person or family every Monday, and then she adds to it, because she's a terrific researcher. I mean, she does Google and AI and I don't know what all, and finds lots of rich additional data and information to supplement that post. And then on Thursdays, since she and her husband are new to the community, been here 3 years, and they're avid walkers and runners, they walk to different parts of the city and run into businesses, and they ask, how long you been here, when you got started, yada, yada. And pretty soon, the owners are telling their life story. Oh, yes, I inherited this from my grandpa. And so then she writes that story up on Thursday. So I really encourage you to go check that out. Now, why I'm telling you about it is not just to brag about her efforts, but if you want to communicate to younger generations and people who don't know anything about the history, you have to reach them.
Yep.
Now, Facebook isn't the best way to go, I suppose, because everybody on there is probably old geezers like me. But there's a lot of people that would appreciate knowing that information, and I just had a thought also, the wonderful food truck things that the city does on Friday nights, or however often they do it, a couple times a month, I think. It would be really cool to have sort of a mini display, maybe inside the depot, in the good weather, and people could walk by it, and they could see maybe one picture of one historic house and a little bit of a brief write-up about it. Could be put on a one-page thing, hand it to them. So I think it's very difficult. You don't have enough employees. You don't have 5 or 6 employees that could go out and do this. But we have some volunteers that can do it, and they're doing it out of love and wanting to learn about the community. So again, we're partnering as often as we can. There's always someone from the Lacey Historical Society at every historical commission meeting. And again, there's ways that we need to get out and contact younger people, because, you know, today's activities are tomorrow's history.
I absolutely agree. I know that, you know, the Capital Development Center and the Blooms have just an amazing amount of stories too. And I'm just talking to the city manager. We're going to hopefully going to be reaching out to him on a whole host of issues. But I think one of the ways we like to get them plugged in is making sure that we're not losing some of those stories either, because the Bloom family was such an integral part of how Lacey became a city, and we don't want that history to go away either. I know you probably have quite a bit of information on them, but that is definitely, I mean, there's a whole generation who have no idea what the South Sound Center was and the historic nature of it. And, so I think there's maybe some opportunities to work with them as well. Does the council have anything? I'm sorry, I could chat about this all the time. Go
I
ahead.
just want to add, I guess, really with this mapping project that we're kind of wanting to get going, it's kind of a bottomless pit, actually. I mean, we talk about getting the historic properties that are in the register now and ones that maybe have historic significance but aren't necessarily on the register, but even stuff that isn't there anymore. I mean, one of my personal favorite Lacey stories is Luther Wyckoff's Lavender Farm.
Yes.
That's in my neighborhood. I don't know how I'm related to him. We have the same last name, but, you know, that's not there anymore. But, you know, having that on a map, that kind of stuff, showing what used to be there, and, you know, how our community evolved over time.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of stuff that can be doing. We could be working on this for years, and just continue to add to the resources of the community.
Lavender was such a big early part of our Lacey economy before, when we were known as Woodland, and there was lavender farms all over the place around here, including behind where the Gallagher House used to be. There was big lavender farms behind there way back in the day. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities.
And just to kind of remind council, and I think everybody's aware, you know, we're looking at the wrap projects for very utility boxes around the community and having those wraps based off of historical figures or properties in Lacey. So that will also highlight some of these things as well, in addition to the mapping and everything. So we can continue to get that presence out there in the traveling public so they can draw a connection to the Lacey history.
And I'd love this, I'm so happy that the McKinney assessment, house assessment is part of it. I know it's on the upcoming work. That is obviously such a really historic old building that unfortunately is just sat empty and dilapidating all these years, when I think there could be a cool public-private partnership in there somewhere that could really explain a lot about our early history. And it's really one of the most beautiful places in Thurston County. Happen to be in our right there around Lake Lois. It is beautiful back there with trails and everything else. It's just there's not a lot of access and so on and so forth. So I think I'm waiting patiently to see what the future holds for that property and what can be done there as well.
Real quickly, I'll just note the number 13 on the work plan, Lacey Depot Historic Photos is on there, and then number 25, identify potential register properties. Some of the things you mentioned are in the work plan.
Perfect. Anything else from council? Thank you so much. Appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Supposed to say.
absolutely.
I'm way older than the city.
Look forward to celebrating you on Saturday, John. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's where I saw Star Wars.
Yeah, just making sure we have enough chairs.
So our last agenda item is our Parks, Culture, and Recreational Board Work Plan.
can sit on this side or the other.
All right, where
I'm gonna take this one.
Fred Meyer is.
Everybody find a seat. Gary, would you like to sit?
Movies where Fred Meyer is?
Yep.
Until when?
Until 80, 1980.
Oh, wow.
Really? I think Star Wars was the last movie they played there.
So it was right across the street from the mall.
Used to face.
So why would you even have to go buy a ticket? You just watch it.
All the mics on?
It was facing the other way.
Oh, okay.
The screen, so I guess where you kind of like look it down Pacific Avenue a little bit.
Okay.
There, but there's tall trees that sort of surround it.
Of course. Oh, you do?
Ours was in Auburn. I miss the whole.
Yeah, remember that?
I noticed some, like a familiar name like yours, like a month ago.
Right off Auburn Way North. I mean, cool, a lot of cool memories. Okay. Next up is the Parks Board Work Plan. I'll turn it over.
Yeah, good evening again. Just want to thank the council for this opportunity with the Parks, Culture, and Recreation Board to celebrate the 2024 accomplishments and accept their 2025 work plan. Chair Goodwin and Jenny Wilson, our senior parks planner, are going to be presenting. But before they start, I really want to thank this board for all of their work in 2024 and already kicking off for the new year.
Can we get some introductions real quick?
Yes. Thank you.
I'm Jenny Wilson, Senior Parks Planner.
Gary Larson, Commissioner.
Wendy Goodwin, Parks Commissioner. Parks, Lacey, Culture and Recreations Chair.
Aryan Kumar, I'm a youth member.
Aaron Wheeler, Commissioner.
Lori Davies, Commissioner. Hillary Dykstra, Commissioner.
I think you all know us for the most part. And we're good. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I wanted just to note real quickly, Chair Goodwin has served 2 years as chair. Sadly, she's going to be moving on to a new adventure and leaving us here on the Parks Board. This is actually her last meeting.
Oh.
I know. But it's great that we have a chance to hear from her tonight. And we know that she'll stay involved as a champion of Lacey because she's everywhere in the community. And so it's a goodbye, but not really because we'll see her still.
You'll see me soon, yes.
But yeah, super appreciate your going above and beyond for this board and for the Parks Department and the community, really. So also want to publicly thank Jenny Wilson and all of her efforts working with this board. She does such a great job. And then also just publicly thanking our Parks, Culture, and Recreation Department staff as well for all their work. They work hard every day. They work hard every day so that other people get the opportunity to play. So really, really super appreciate them. With that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Chair Goodwin.
Thanks, Jen.
Yep.
So this is our 2024 accomplishments. Thank you, Mayor Ryder, Deputy Mayor Miller. I think I'm tired. I don't know what's like my brain is slow, and my mouth's going faster, so.
Yeah, we're last year.
Yeah. And council members. I'll be highlighting some of the 2024 accomplishments. The full list is in your packet for your review. This year was a huge accomplishment when completing the Regional Athletic Complex parking lot. The gravel parking lot, which was heavily used, is now a beautiful and welcoming entrance to one of our most heavily used parks. The project included paving of the parking lot and adding 340 parking stalls, 6 EV charging stations, 8 ADA parking stalls, 8 bus parking stalls, frontage improvements on Stillicum Road, sidewalks, bike lane, street lights, street trees, and landscaping. It's beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much. This is the Huntermer Park concept. The staff worked with the Community and Economic Development Department to hire a consultant for a concept design for Huntermer Park. The project is accomplishing 2 goals. It's replacing the climbing structure at the park that is out of warranty and is beginning to fail. And I think that's the blue mark in that area. And then improve the Lacey Midtown District, of which the park is a key component. And by having the Parks Department work cooperatively on this project, we can pool our efforts and resources to meet the recreation and the Lacey Midtown needs.
Did you say 340 spaces?
Yes,
340?
340.
It is nice.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was that
300,
many.
and for just parking stalls.
I
And then
didn't
we
know it was that many.
Yeah.
My God.
It makes me wonder how many vehicles could park when it was not asphalt, you know, it was the dirt parking lot. I know there's a lot of destructions and mounds and rocks and trees and stuff, but
We definitely added a huge amount of capacity there.
Yeah.
it looks beautiful too.
Yeah.
Next, we have our Parks Wildlife Education. I'm really proud of this. Thank you so much, Jenny. A goal for 2024 was to promote wildlife education at parks. We partnered with the Stream Team to increase the visibility of the Nature Sleuths program. The program uses a treasure hunt format to teach and direct people through the various areas of our parks. People can download an app to get to the missions that help them learn about the wildlife, habitat, and landmarks. And it's a conservation information area in our various parks. The best part is that once they have completed the mission, they get park-specific stickers mailed to them, and they're available at many of our parks regionally, but at these Lacey parks right now, Woodland Creek Park, Wonderwood Park, Mullen Road Habitat Reserve, Wanchers Community Park, William Ives Trail, and once it's open, Greg Cuyo Park will be on there. I've done it. I got all my stickers. They're amazing. It's really fun, and you get to meet community members, so it's kind of like geocaching, but you're learning about nature. And so I learned about the reclaiming of water, so I learned something about where I live, so it's very cool. If you get a chance, try one out. And that was spurred by Commissioner Wheeler, so when we kind of started the conversation about it, so. We also have the off-leash dog education. This spring, we initiated an education campaign regarding off-leash dogs in our parks. This campaign was in addition to the updated rules and signs saying dogs must be on leashes. Using a dog's perspective, we aim to reduce off-leash dogs in parks. Pictured here is an example of one of the signs and messages explaining that dogs get scared of other people, or other dogs or people. We put up temporary signs in several of our parks areas and often used as off-leash areas. We included in our newsletter and did social media posts. Hey, dog's so cute. These are our partnerships. This is who we've been working with, are essential to the city and our department. This year, we renewed 3 significant agreements, allowing us to offer great community programs and services. We have partnered with NTPS since 1974 for joint use of our facilities. We renewed a master's interlocal agreement to continue our commitment and partnership. We also reviewed sub-agreements for our pools, athletics, buses, and marketing. We also renewed our agreement with Thurston County to operate specialized recreation programs for individuals with developmental or physical disabilities. The Parks Board also approved the updated senior services for South Sound Agreement to provide critical services for local seniors and their families at the Virgil S. Clarkson Senior Center. Our grants, donations, and pledges. We are always looking for ways to stretch our funding sources and connect with community partners. Reflecting in the 2024 awards listed here, it is also worth noting that 2 applications were submitted to the Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office for the Rainier Vista Pickleball, Table Tennis, and Safety Netting Project, and the William A. Bush Park Playground Replacement Project. We ranked well and will know if we receive funding once the state budget is finalized. And now I will turn it over to Jenny Wilson.
Thanks, Wendy. So I'm Jenny, Parks Planner, and I'm going to go over some of the work plan items for 2025. You have the complete list in your packet, and I'm just highlighting new and/or key items in the interest of time. We have quite a few work plan items, as you'll note. So the main construction projects that we have for 2025 that are going to occupy a lot of our time are construction of Greg Cuyo Park and the Woodland Creek Community Park Bridge Replacement Project. So Greg Cuyo Park Phase 1A went out to bid in December. Construction contract will be coming to council soon, and we hope to break ground in March. So obviously this is a huge project for our department, and we're really excited about it. And then Woodland Creek Park Bridge replacement. This bridge the design of this bridge is nearly complete and is anticipated to be under construction this fall. The bridge that we have at the park is nearly 40 years old. It's in dire need of replacement. The bridge that we have that's going to replace is going to be a prefabricated bridge similar to the one that you see here and will accommodate maintenance vehicles. So we're also excited about that improvement.
What's the timeline on Cuyo Park Phase 1A? You said starting in like March. How long do we anticipate the project to take?
So it went out to add with a deadline of June 30th for the work. That doesn't mean it would be open to the public. It would be excluding like long lead items. So after June 30th, that would be the time when the city would undergo all of the inspections. So hoping to get it open to the public, sometime before fall, before September. That's the intended timeline, so.
And the bid award will come before council in either the next council meeting or the one following, depending on how we are able to package everything up.
Very soon.
And then we also have quite a few planning projects happening this year, but the three most significant ones include the RAC Phase 3 design, the McKinney Building, and Bush Park Playground replacement. A priority project for this year is RAC Phase 3 pre-design. We're excited to share that this project's underway. The critical areas report was completed. There were some wetlands on the site that were determined not to meet the wetland criteria, but there are some sensitive areas that we need to work around, so.
Wait, can you say that again?
Oh.
There were some wetlands on the property that were,
There were some unverified wetlands on the site that we knew about, and then we had a wetland report done, and they were determined not to be wetlands. So that is in our favor. It's very good. But there are some sensitive areas that we do know about. So we also have a landscape architect on board, and they're starting the initial concept design, and we'll be providing 3 alternatives for the undeveloped site: an at-grade pedestrian crossing and costs for some upgrades to the current facilities. We plan to bring concepts to council for review in May, so it's coming along. The McKinney Building, as Historic Commission shared, research is in progress. We have consultants working on the project, one working on a wetland delineation, and then the historic preservation consultant working on the property information, determining eligibility for placement on registers. So it's kind of an interesting crossover between our boards for that project. So, and then Bush Park Playground is scheduled for planning and design this year. This is the oldest playground in the city's inventory. It's 28 years old. It needs an update so it's more inclusive, accessible, and engaging. We're really excited about this project because we've partnered with Gateway Rotary. They've championed the project and have committed $110,000 toward the project, which is really significant for a partnership with us. And the club is also going to help with engagement efforts to gather community input when we get to the planning and design phase of it. So those are our 3 most significant projects for the year. And we're similar to our Historic Commission. We're just so grateful for all the time, effort, and guidance that our Parks Board provides. They're a wonderful group of volunteers. They care about our parks and community. As Jen mentioned, tonight is Wendy's last meeting. Here's a picture of her during our Lacey Parks Culture and Recreation Comprehensive Plan outreach. And it really perfectly depicts her enthusiasm for this board, and we are so going to miss her and thank her so much for her work. And tonight we're asking for our accomplishments and work plan to be added to the consent agenda for approval. Can I answer any questions?
Let me go like we've started. Is there anything from the Parks Board that you think that we missed that somehow didn't get on, or that you'd like to see?
Oh, there's lots of things I'd like to see.
Yeah.
But From my standpoint, I kind of reiterate the PIFU and the commissioner work that we do. It's been a lot this year. I mean, we worked really, really hard, so I'm hoping, as we go forward, the council is very intentful about what we did as work because we took that from the survey from our public. And I can tell you, I am in the public for those unheard voices and what they want and what they're looking for. And we have to serve, I think, for a lot of our community members, a level for everyone. And that's that inclusivity part with equity. So I was glad to hear that this evening, that that's happening. I'd also mention that photo that I'm doing with the map. Being intentful about how the equity of what we're doing with that parks and that PIFU, how it's spread out for all of our community members, people who don't have, real quality parks, strategically located where they can get to them is very important. So I would love to see that be taken, that we're being equitable and sharing it among our community members. And I am going to further my partnership with this. I'm not leaving. You will see me soon. I will be back. And being on the Intercity Transit Authority Board, making sure that all of our community members have access via public transportation to get to these parks is important to me. And it's also inclusive, and we have a lot of community members who use it and need it. So I just cannot thank everyone on our commission enough of what we've done and what we've brought to you. I'm proud of what we've done. So I thank the staff, my Lacey staff. I consider you my staff for Lacey. I've enjoyed partnering with all of you on so many levels. So thank you so much. And Commissioner Wheeler, I want to miss you. Lori, I'm sorry we didn't get to work together more, but I feel like this board is very strong. It's healthy. It's got great feedback. So thank you for all your work, Commissioner Dykstra. Thank you.
Great. Councilmember Stebbins?
I just want to say from the majority of our council, we're commissioners at one point too, and we know how much hard work goes into it, especially when you're in the main leadership role of the commission. But I wanted to leave your guys' commission with an idea on the McKinney House. A lot like the Prairie Grange House at Olympia had turned into a Starbucks. But it's regardless of what it is, it preserves it and, renovates it and keeps it around for long time, future generations. I'd like to see something like that happen with the McKinney House, lack of better idea or a name or even a business would be like Lacey Diner or something like that. Something that would be it would be an ongoing revenue source that could be committed to the parks. You know what I mean? Through a lease, maybe if they have a luxury thing on that lease, if they did really well, that extra money would go straight to the parks. And it'd just be a funding source that, I don't know, and maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's a bad idea, but I wanted to share that with you.
I think that's one of the things that you're hoping to find out, right, as you do the work, is obviously the McKinney House is in tough shape, right? And it really just sat for quite a long time until, somewhat recently where we sort of said, hey, if we let this sit any longer and don't do anything, we're going to absolutely lose it. It may be too late already, we just don't know, but hopefully it's not. I was in it last year. We went and took a look at it, and it's like, wow, it's in pretty rough shape. And so it'll definitely need some work, but I do think there is, as I mentioned earlier with the historic side, I think there is a possible public-private partnership here that could hopefully maintain it and could use the property to, there's a lot of really cool things to be able to grab a piece of pizza and walk down the trail. I mean, I think there's yeah, it's a great location. Obviously there will have to be some parking and some everything else, and who knows what needs to happen there, but hopefully we'll find out about that sooner than later. And I know it's on the work plan, so I appreciate that. I do have one thing, actually, let me go through. You have
It's a quick question.
Okay.
I just wanted some clarification on what an at-grade pedestrian crossing would look like for the RAC Phase 3.
The sidewalk or a crosswalk is
So-
all. Yeah.
okay. makes me very nervous.
But the cost of a bridge or tunnel would be more than the park, so.
I'm just worried the safety issue being a lot more expensive potentially in the long run.
So we are asking the consultant to
Yeah.
consider a future
Okay.
addition.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, it's-
So
I just can imagine
part
that
of-
being so
part of-
busy.
Yeah, part of the scope of work is add that in each of the design concepts of what that would look like. And also, there could be some intersection reconfigurations and shorten that distance, too. But that's something the design council will be bringing back.
You know, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that, I think it was our last Intercity Transit Authority meeting, we were talking about the safety factor of seniors trying to, having to cross the street there and unprotected, and the possibility of trying to get a bus in and going around the circle, and that was seen as kind of difficult. So one of the things that I think was going to be brought forward was the idea of coming up with some sort of protected crossing, or I don't know whether it would be a lighted signal or the blinking thing, but it looks like we got two potential places, but it would be great, since they're so close together, if we can put those on the same trajectory.
I think we're all concerned, we all know how busy that is, and unprotected crossing there, I think, scares a lot of us, but we also understand how expensive a possible bridge would be, but, you know, it's something that I think we need to take into consideration, because if you expect people to have to get into their vehicle to cross over to go to a, that's sort of crazy as well.
Well, I want to also just iterate too, talking about, there's different scales of crossings, and according to best practices, council policies in our bike plan, our pedestrian bicycle plan, there are, you look at these situations based on the context, number of people, the traffic flow, and you build in protections for that crossing. And it can go from just a stripes crosswalk to pedestrian signals to something else. And that's one of the things we want the design consultant to look at and our folks to look at, to make sure whatever's there is, tries that protective measure, provides as much possibility of movement across, but also got to look at the cost too, because as Scott said, if you go too far, then all of a sudden it's more than the actual factory fees available. So we got to figure that out, and that's going to bring back to council. You can have a little bit more detail to dig into and ask questions about.
Mm-hmm. So I have, I want to kind of go back to the Huntermere Park concept. I know that we have a consultant who did some of this, and I appreciate it. I think a couple of things that are happening at this park. One thing that's happening at the park is there's going to be a new restaurant that's going in right on, on the very south, I guess it'd be on the west, southeast corner
Right
here.
adjacent to the plaza.
Right adjacent to the plaza, that is going to be bringing considerably more people to this area. And unfortunately, the way that the stage, that we put the stage years ago, we really didn't take into account of what the future could hold for that. Where the stage really should be is up in the farther northeast corner facing the park, because that's the high part of the park, and then everyone sits down below. As you know, like people, music in the park, or all these other things that happen, it's the way that the stage is oriented is not conducive for everyone. It's like, man, why couldn't that stage been in the other corner? And so I know we're looking to do some upgrades as part of this as Midtown. I know we've talked about this as being a possible site of a splash park. There's a whole bunch of other things. But as long as that stage is where it's at now, it's really difficult to sort of maximize the usability of Huntermere Park. And it would be very interesting to see what it would actually take to reconfigure that stage. So it's actually allowing the majority of the people to enjoy it.
I think that's a great idea for a potential future phase. just because, as you know,
Yeah.
as you add amenities, adds cost.
Sure.
Did you want to add something to that?
Well, yeah, it is something that over time, as that park evolves and the Midtown District evolves, those are type of things we can program in. One of the things that's driving the current proposal is, one, the replacement of the play equipment, because it's, aging out, and we want to, bring something back in gets interactive, it could be, water interactive and some other things.
Sure.
And then also, that space that you referred to that's going to have a potential restaurant in, when that was originally developed, that was a coffee shop and just a 5-foot sidewalk in front of it, and trying to look at how you blend that private to the public space and add place for seating and just general interaction, enjoyment to build off of that use is one of the other reasons why this looked at as one of the strategic investments of the Midtown Plan, combining parks needs and being a joint project.
Yeah.
But over time, going back to your point, yes, as that place is evolving, we see the popularity of events there, music in the park, all these different things. We could always look at how do we program and plan for reconfiguring that space, and so that you can have more audience and flow to the concerts and other things. And really, it's starting to evolve into a living room to the Midtown District, right?
Absolutely. That's how I see it. And I think, yeah, if the stage was just over there, the possibilities of this whole park could be just amazing, but I know it's going to take phases to do that.
I remember when we got the property in two halves. The north half was the first property that we were able to achieve in the late 90s and was developed, and that's kind of how the configuration, and then we got the second half to the south came later. So that's kind of the reason why that different plan and evolution of the plan.
Got it.
But I have a there's still housing being put in there, right? I mean, that's
Oh,
also
yeah.
apartments and, I mean, so the size of the venues you can hold there still have to take in account people living in that space, right? So it's,
Well, I think that's why it'll make this park even more popular, because one of the things that we just haven't had in Lacey Midtown is the housing population. But just, on the other side, there's no housing that's going in. On the other side of this building, in the parking lot, as we know, there's going to be 2 sets of new multifamily housing. And so we're talking about a lot of people living in an area that now can walk out their door and enjoy a park that we never have had before. And it's going to change that park really overnight as that housing comes in. And what you think an event's popular now, where people have to drive to get there, when you can just walk outside and get to it, it's going to be really popular.
Yeah. You do bring up a good point. That comes in the nice spaces, but people live in there, noise, and there's going to be that ongoing
yeah,
challenges.
I'm thinking like if you're talking concerts, I mean, how big can you go when you've got families and people living in that space and congestion? I mean, it's great to have nice events, but it's also, it puts a lot of toll on people living in that space, so
It's that urban fabric that's evolving and developing and what the expectations are. So, yeah, you're right.
Does anyone else have anything? Well, great job, as usual. We appreciate it. Anything else from the council? From the Parks Board? Okay, well, with that, we have reached the end of our agenda. So without objection, I will call this meeting adjourned at 7:43. And as always, you keep it classy, Lacey.